Hi everyone, welcome to Aklat Cyber. If you're preparing for the IELTS speaking test, practicing with structured feedback is important. Chat GPT can act as an IELTS examiner, asking you for Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3 questions, analyzing your responses, and providing useful feedback on areas to improve. There are two methods you can use to practice your IELTS speaking in ChatGPT. For the method 1, you can manually create your own prompts to feed into the ChatGPT in order for it to act as a real IELTS examiner. The second method is by using the pre-built module integrated with ChatGPT, which is the GPT IELTS speaking module. We can discuss it later. For the first method, we'll manually feed a prompt into ChatGPT. I've set up the persona, goal, instructions, and actions to make it act as an IELTS examiner and simulate a real test experience. I won't go into the details of the prompt here, but I've added it in the video description, so you can copy and paste it into ChatGPT to start your IELTS speaking mock test right away. Once you run the prompt, ChatGPT will conduct the test in 3 parts. It will also provide detailed feedback after each section, including your strengths, areas for improvement, specific mistakes, and others. Now, let's start.
Hello. Let's get started with your first question. Can you tell me about the area where you live?
I live in Mississauga, Canada, and I just recently migrated here 2 years ago. What I notice here is that the temperature is colder than my hometown. So our hometown is a tropical weather, and here in Canada, the temperature reach as low as -15 or -20, which is I'm not used to. I need to adapt to the temperature here. But the good thing is there are a lot of stalls here and different food cuisines like Indian, Mediterranean, and others.
Thank you for your response. Now, let's move on to the next question. 2. Do you prefer to live in a city or in the countryside? Why?
I personally prefer to live in the countryside. For example, when I was a child, I usually go to my cousin and we will go to the rice field and play hide and seek. So I feel like I have a fresh air and have a peace of mind when I'm in the rural areas. So it 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 is I went to urban areas, but it's challenging for me because the pollution and the traffic. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Let's move on to the next question. 3. What kind of weather do you like the most?
I like the tropical weather because I used to live in a country that has it. For example, during my grandma's birthday, we usually go to the beach, and because I like being in the sun, I enjoy it better than in other I enjoy the weather better than in other countries.
Thanks for your response. Now let's move on to the final question for part 1. 4. Do you like traveling? Why or why not?
I do like traveling a lot because when I do, I experience different cultures and traditions, and through that, I get a gauge, or I will know how to connect to other people more when I know what they like, what they do not like, and what motivates them. And it also encouraged me to do my best, uh, because when I see how their country improves, I will get to know how to improve myself by mimicking or copying what their good traits are, and do it
Thank you for your answers. Let's now move on to part two. At part two, long term. Now I'm going to give you a topic, and I'd like you to speak about it for 1 to 2 minutes. You have 1 minute to prepare. Please make some notes if you wish. Here's your topic. Describe a memorable event in your life. You should say what the event was, when and where it happened, who was involved, and explain why it was memorable. You have 1 minute to prepare. Feel free to make some notes. Start when you're ready.
I remember about 10 years ago, I passed my board exam. The board exam is the licensure exam for the engineering in the Philippines. I am at home during that time and I don't want to see the news about the licensure exam because I'm nervous if I will fail. I am with my relatives that time and everybody is waiting for the results. Suddenly, my uncle called me and told me that I actually passed the exam. And suddenly, everybody is congratulating me. And while I'm in the peak of my happiness, there is a flashback of me of the hardships that I had while I'm doing the review. And I am stressed. I don't want to go outside and just decided to go in my hometown, which is my province, which is three hours away from the city. And
Thank you for sharing such a detailed memory. It sounds like that moment really meant a lot to you. Now let's move on to part three. Part three, discussion. Let's talk about the topic of exams. 1. Why do you think exams are still important in today's education system? Feel free to answer when you're ready.
exams are important in the education because that is the way the school is assessing if you understand the lessons or not. For example, if you get a fail grade, it means that you don't fully understand what they are discussing, and they will be aware if there's something wrong about the way they teach or the way the student perceive or receive the lessons.
Thank you for your answer. Now, let's move to the next question. 2. Do you think that the pressure of exams affects students' mental health? Why or why not?
It depends on the situation. For example, there are a lot of pressure in their home and their parents are always expecting them to be an achiever. They will naturally be pressured and nervous every time the exam is approaching because they want to set their standards and they are thinking of the expectation of the people around them. But if there's no a lot of pressure in their surroundings, I think they will be more relaxed in exams.
Thanks for your thoughtful response. Now, let's move on to the next question. 3. In your opinion, how can students prepare for exams in a way that reduces stress?
Generally, the students can just study their lesson every day and they must make sure that for every discussion with the professor, they understand it and they are taking notes that so that when the actual exam comes, they will not be cramming on the bulk lessons that they had previously. So it's just in the matter of time if they schedule their if they schedule their review better, then they will not be pressured and can relax as well.
Thank you for your answer. Now, for the final question. 4. How do you think the way exams are conducted will change in the future?
Personally, we conduct the lesson and exams online. So there is this app called Proctor something. I forgot about the specific name. So they just monitor their students through the camera while they are doing the exam, and any movements detected by the sensor is flagged in the system, and they can either call if this is a cheating or not. So the way the examinations are conducted is different from the previous one, which is more of a traditional way. There is an instructor and they are manually checking if the students are cheating. But now it's more of a systematized, and they use the technology to monitor the students.
Thank you for your responses. Now, let's review your performance. Part 1, Introduction and Interview.
Now, as you can see here, I'm done with the exam. And ChatGPT has provided general feedback for parts 1, 2, and 3 of my IELTS speaking mock test. Let's break it down. For the part 1, you can see here that the ChatGPT summarized my performance in 4 key categories. These are the fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. It does the same for part 2 and 3, giving an overview of my strengths and weaknesses in each of the section. But the problem here is that it's not detailed, so I prompt ChatGPT again to provide me a detailed review for my exam. So I prompted it to identify the 3 common mistakes I make in each category, provide examples of my mistakes from my responses, and add conclusion for each section so I know exactly what to improve on. For example, for the part 1 fluency and coherence, these are my strengths. So I answered naturally and extended my responses as well by providing like for example. But the areas for improvement is, for example, I have occasional unnatural pauses. There is an example here and there is a correction. So I also have repetitive sentence structures. And then there is overuse of fillers, so, because, and ed. So I know that I usually commit that mistakes. So there is also a conclusion here that my fluency is good, but there are minor hesitations and repetitive sentence structures. That's why I only have a 7.0 grade for fluency and coherence. There's also a feedback for part 2 long term about the fluency and coherence, and part 3. Overall, my final band score is 6.5, and there is a conclusion here to reduce hesitation for smoother fluency, expand vocabulary to avoid repetition, and pay closer attention to grammar, especially prepositions and tenses. So now let's move on to the second method that I am saying previously. So I will just explore GPTs here, and there is a module integrated with ChatGPT to practice your IELTS speaking. And by using this module, you need to start a chat, and then you will notice that there's IELTS speaking English and language learning here. And by using this module, you will not need to provide a prompt. Once you start the speaking test, it will automatically start the part 1, part 2, and part 3. And I will also provide you an example. So let us start with the method 2.
Hello.
Hello, I am your IELTS speaking examiner for this mock test. Can you please tell me your full name?
My name is John Smith.
Nice to meet you, John Smith. Do you work or are you a student?
I'm currently working. I'm in the technology industry, and luckily I'm working from home.
That sounds great. Since you work from home, do you prefer it over working in an office? Why or why not?
Initially, I like working from home. However,
Take your time. You can start whenever you're ready.
Yes. Initially, of course, like anybody else, I like working from home, but I do see the benefits of meeting your colleagues and talking about a project in person. So in general, yes, I prefer working from home.
That makes sense. Now let's talk about your daily routine. Do you often go to bed late or early?
Now that I think about it, I often go to bed around 11 or 12 p.m., 12 a.m., 11 p.m. So that's late. So I often go to bed late.
I see. What part of your day do you like best?
For If it's a work day, the part of the day that I like best would be the start of the day where you have lots of energy. And during the weekend, the part of the day that I like best would be somewhere in the afternoon where you usually go out.
That sounds like a good balance. Now, do you think it is important to have a daily routine for your work? Why or why not?
I think it comes natural with time that you eventually get to have some sort of routine in place for your work. And it helps you with managing stress, making sure that you know what to do, versus having a lot of unpredictable circumstances happen to you. So, in general, it's beneficial to have a routine for work.
That's a great point. Having a routine definitely helps with managing stress. Now, let's talk about technology. What technology do you use at work?
Like everybody else, I use my laptop or workstation every day. I can't work without it, and it's becoming a necessity. And along with that, internet access, of course.
That makes sense. What would your work be like without computers?
I wouldn't have my current work right now if we didn't have computers. It's one of the foundational or building blocks of my industry.
You have reached the message cap for GPT-4. Please try again later.
We couldn't finish part 2 and 3 using method 2 due to GPT's 4 message cap. If you want a full, uninterrupted IELTS mock test, subscribing to GPT-4 is a good option for more comprehensive practice. To adapt, I asked Chat GPT to evaluate part 1 alone, resulting in a band 6.5 with feedback or fluency, coherence, and vocabulary. Now let's go over the pros and cons of both methods to help you choose the best approach. For the method 1, manual prompts, we can see that it is completely free, so there's no GPT subscription needed. It's also fully customizable and you can focus on weak areas. For the cons, it requires more effort since you need to manually put your prompts, and then there's no built-in structured test. You have to guide the session. As in the method 2, it is already pre-programmed and it is integrated to ChatGPT. Hence, it has pre-made tests which mimic the real IELTS format. It uses latest IELTS question. This is for the 2025 questions as checked on the GitHub repository for more realistic practice. And it provides detailed feedback on fluency, coherence, and vocabulary. However, for the cons, it requires GPT Plus subscription. And it is less customizable as you need to follow the built-in test structure. In conclusion, if you want a free and flexible approach, go for method 1. But if you prefer structured and advanced experience and you don't mind the cost, method 2 is the better option.